Hi, dear students. In this video, we are going to revise the important value points from the chapter Indigo and the questions that are likely to come. The Life of Mahatma Gandhi is a book written by Louis Fisher, who worked as a soldier from 1918 to 1920 and later on became a journalist. He wrote this book, and this particular excerpt is taken from The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. This book is reviewed by the Times as one of the best books written on Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhiji told Louis Fisher how he decided to urge British to depart from India. The events that led to his urge to British to leave India. He goes on narrating how Ramcharan Shukla, a peasant from Champaran, came to meet him in Lucknow Convention of Congress in 1916, and how he requested him to accompany him to Champaran to help peasants eradicate the unjust system of sharecropping. Gandhiji had his appointments. He had to go to Kanpur after Lucknow Convention. Ramcharan Shukla was very tenacious, very persistent. He went along with Gandhi to Kanpur, and almost for 1 week he was moving with him. Gandhiji was impressed with his tenacity and promised him that he would go with him to Champaran and told him to meet him when he would come to Calcutta. He told him the date and promised him to accompany. As per his promise, Gandhiji accompanied Rajkumar Shukla to Champaran. On their way to Champaran first, they stopped at Patna. At Patna, they went to Dr. Rajendra Prasad's home. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was not at home. His attendant did not know Gandhi, so he did not let them in. They had to stay out. He did not even allow Gandhi to draw water from the well, thinking that perhaps he is untouchable. Gandhiji then went to Muzaffarpur. At Muzaffarpur, he was trying to find out more details of the case. At Muzaffarpur station, he was welcomed by Professor J.B. Kruplani along with his students. He stayed at Professor Malkani's house there. Professor Malkani was professor at government college, and it was unusual and risky for a government servant at that time to give shelter to the followers of Home Rule movement. Muzaffarpur lawyers met Gandhi. He got all the information about the case from the lawyers. When he got to know about the big fees that the lawyers used to charge the poor peasants, he chided them. He told them that it was not fair to charge such high fees from the peasants. He went on telling that the real relief for the peasants would not come from the court, but it would really come when they would become fearless, when they would become free from fear, when the fear of the landlords would go away from their minds. So Gandhiji was thinking of a solution outside the court, and he was thinking to make the peasants fearless, and that would bring the real solution. Gandhiji further inquired, and he found that the arable land in the region was owned by the British landlords. Indian peasants used to work on those arable land, on those agricultural land as tenants. But the British landlords had made it compulsory for the peasants to plant 15% of their lands with indigo plant. Indigo was a commercial crop. It was also made compulsory for the peasants, and the full income of indigo would be given to the British landlords as a rent. There were certain happenings in Europe. Germany invented synthetic indigo. Synthetic indigo finished the market for the natural indigo. As a result, British landlords realized that they would not get the rent that they used to get by selling that 15% indigo harvest. So they forced an agreement on all the sharecroppers, all the peasants. They were made to sign an agreement promising British landlords compensation for the loss of the money that they were expected to get by selling indigo. British landlords had made it compulsory to plant 15% of the land or 3/20 of the land with indigo. This indigo harvest would be sold in the market, and that full money would be given to British as a rent for using the land. When British landlords forced this kind of agreement, a few illiterate peasants signed the agreement. They were ignorant about the happenings of artificial indigo, synthetic indigo manufacturing. As they were ignorant about the manufacturing of artificial indigo, they signed the agreement, and later on when they realized their mistake, they also paid the money, and later on they demanded refund of the money. The arrangement, the system was irksome, it was troublesome and unjust. The peasants opposed. They went to court for help. Those who went to court were threatened through the thugs. The landlords hired thugs to threaten and force the peasant to sign the agreement and to keep the peasants away from going to court. Illiterate peasants signed the agreement that was forced upon the peasants by the landlords. But when they realized that what agreement they had signed, they opposed. Some of them had paid the compensation, but they demanded it back when they realized that there was production of synthetic indigo in Germany, and the natural indigo they were producing in the field would no longer be purchased in the market. In such a situation, Gandhiji's entry occurred in Champaran. He visited the secretary of Landlords Association. He also visited the official commissioner of Tirhut division. Commissioner bullied Gandhi and ordered him to leave Tirhut. Landlords Association secretary as well as the British official commissioner of Tirhut division gave cold shoulder to Gandhi's efforts. At last, Gandhiji went to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. There he stayed at a house of one of the peasants. That house they made headquarters of that movement. Gandhiji came to know that a peasant was maltreated in nearby village, and next morning he started to that village sitting on the elephant. But then the superintendent of police overtook him, stopped him, and ordered him to move back home. He took him in his carriage and handed him official notice to leave Champaran. But Gandhiji wrote on the notice, on the backside of the receipt of the notice, that he would disobey the order. He got summons to the court the next morning. When he got summons to the court, he sensed that he might be put in the prison. So the previous night, he wired a report to the viceroy, telegraphed to Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the advocate. He told Rajendra Prasad to come with influential friends, also gave instructions to the ashram through telegram. The next morning, there was a big crowd in Motihari. There were spontaneous demonstrations in support of Gandhi. Thousands of people gathered there. It was the beginning of liberation. British officers felt powerless to regulate the crowd. They took Gandhi's help them to regulate the crowd. Gandhiji helped them. The magistrate postponed Gandhi's trial first for 2 hours and told him to provide bail. Gandhiji refused. He was pleaded guilty, and Gandhiji told the magistrate that he was facing the conflict of duties. He was not a lawbreaker, but he had to obey the higher law of voice of conscience. Gandhiji was pleaded guilty and he was told to provide bail by the magistrate, but he refused. He, as well as the lawyer, sensed that he would have to go to jail. The lawyer said that they would return their homes if Gandhiji was put in prison. Gandhiji told them that he was a stranger for the peasants, but he was ready to go in jail for them, and they were the advocates of those peasants. And when the peasants were facing injustice, they were thinking of going back home. It was selfish. The lawyers realized their mistake. They decided to stay there and requested Gandhi to guide them for their next action. Gandhiji took a slip of paper, wrote their names in pairs, and wrote the sequence of the pair in which they would go to jail following Gandhi in case Gandhi was put in jail. The magistrate was postponing the trial and the judgment, probably sensing the support of the crowd in Champaran. After a few days, he got a message from the magistrate that Lieutenant Governor had ordered the case to be dropped. The order to drop Gandhi's case was followed by a far-flung inquiry into the peasants' complaints. by Gandhi and the advocates. 10,000 peasants' grievances were recorded. There was huge data. Edward Gate, Lieutenant Governor, summoned Gandhi. Everyone thought that Gandhiji would be put in the jail again. Gandhiji met Edward Gate 4 times. These four long drawn meetings with Sir Edward Gate, the Lieutenant Governor, led to the formation of official commission to make inquiry into the grievances made by the peasants. This commission consisted of landlords, government officer, and Gandhiji as the sole representative of the peasants. The commission accumulated huge evidence, a mountain of evidence against the lawyers. The landlords agreed to refund in principle as they saw the mountain of proof against them, the mountain of evidence against them. When they agreed in principle, there were negotiations. Landlord thought Gandhiji would demand 100% refund. But Gandhiji demanded 50% deliberately. Landlords, thinking that the deadlock would continue, offered 25% as they wished to create a deadlock. They were thinking that Gandhiji would not accept 25%. To their surprise, Gandhiji accepted it and broke the deadlock. Missionary Reverend H.Z. Hodge, who was observing all this closely, describes this. Though the landlords agreed to pay 25% refund, though the amount was less, it was important that landlords had surrendered for the first time. They had surrendered not only their money, but they had also surrendered some of their prestige. And the most important thing, the planters had become fearless. The planters had become fearless. They were above law. They had realized their rights. They had learned to be courageous. So their fearlessness, their realization of being above law, their realization of their rights, and their learning of the courage were the bigger achievements. Within a few years, planters abandoned their estates as Gandhi had already said that landlords had surrendered some of their prestige. He had further said that he had further said that landlords could not order him in his own country, not content himself with large political and economic solutions. Justified. A question may be asked. His politics intervened with day-to-day problems of millions of people. Day-to-day problems, small things, not big economic issues and not big political issues. He would do his politics with small things, small problems, cultural health related. Gandhiji had loyalty to living beings and not to the abstractions. He had loyalty to the human beings, their problems, and not to the abstract ideas. Gandhiji saw that in Champaran, the peasants used to live in sanitary condition in very healthy, unhealthy circumstances. He called his son Devdas and Mrs. Gandhi arrived there. They taught the peasants sanitation, cleanliness. He also called the volunteer doctor. Three kind of medicines were made available: quinine, sulfur ointment, and castor oil. Castor oil would be given to those who had coated tongue. Quinine would be given to those who had fever and malaria. And sulfur ointment would be given to those who had skin problems. Gandhiji also saw that there was illiteracy. The peasants were illiterate, and so they would live unhealthy and then they would be cheated and all those things. So Gandhiji opened primary schools in 6 villages. He also appealed to voluntary teachers. Two volunteers came to Champaran from Pune and Mumbai. Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh came to Champaran to serve as a teacher. Gandhiji's politics intertwined with problems of millions of people, cultural and social problems of millions of people. His politics did not intertwine with big economics and political solutions. Why did not Gandhi allow pacifist Charles Freer Andrews, who was his follower, to stay in Champaran to help him? When pacifist Charles Freer Andrews, British citizen, was returning to Fiji, Gandhi supporters and the lawyers suggested Gandhi that Mr. Andrews should stay with them as he was British. He would be able to help them. But Gandhi told the lawyers that it would be their weakness. It shows their weakness. They should not rely on any outsider. They should rely on themselves. If their cause is just, if their cause is fair, they should not depend on anyone. They should depend on themselves. Thus, Gandhiji tried to mold them. He molded them to be self-reliant. He molded new free Indians. As Dr. Rajendra Prasad says, Gandhiji agreed to the settlement of 25% because though the amount 25% refund was very small, with that amount, landlords were losing some of their prestige also. Further, it would make them realize that they would not be able to rule the peasants for longer time. 25% refund and surrender of landlords would make the peasants fearless with their success. It would make them courageous. It would also make them realize their rights. Gandhiji understood this and therefore he agreed to accept 25% refund in the settlement. Second question, Gandhiji has loyalty to living beings, no abstraction, justify. Gandhiji did not fight for the abstract ideas. Instead of fighting for abstract ideas, he fought for the living beings, their rights, their problems, to solve their cultural, social, health related problems. Instead of searching for big political and economic solutions, Gandhiji searched solutions for cultural and social problems. When he saw that peasants in Champaran were living in very unhealthy filthy conditions, he tried to create awareness, called his son, youngest son Devdas, and Mrs. Kasturba Gandhi also came there, and they tried to create awareness among the peasants in Champaran. Gandhiji also brought a voluntary doctor who checked the patients, who checked the peasants. When he saw their coated tongue, he would give them castor oil. When he would find someone had fever, he would give them quinine for malaria or fever. If there would be rough skin, they would provide sulfur ointment. Gandhiji also saw the illiteracy there, and he opened primary schools in 6 villages and appealed to volunteers to come there and teach the peasants. As a response to his call, 2 volunteers from Mumbai and Pune came there to teach the illiterate peasants. Thus, Gandhiji tried to help the peasants. He tried to solve their social, cultural, and other problems, tried to bring equality among them. Question number 3. List the leadership qualities that come out through Champaran episode. Elaborate with reference to the chapter. I'm just giving the value points. You can add more. You can elaborate in your own way. Gandhiji organized people. Gandhiji had a foresight, had good communication skill, could work with people, and he had good communication skills, written as well as spoken. He was determined, courageous, and he was a great motivator also. He made the peasants self-dependent. He made them fearless. All these things show that he was a good organizer, good communicator, good speaker. He had a foresight. He could influence the crowd. He was a crowd puller. He had a social sense. He had a power to make decision. He changed the decisions of the lawyers. Question number 4. I did very ordinary thing. British could not order me in my own country. Gandhiji declared this simple thing that he declared increased the confidence of peasants, and British realized that they would not be able to rule for a longer time in our country. Peasants realized their right, they became fearless. This was a small incident, but it gave a big message to British. And within few years, they left the lands. They left the lands, and thus we could see how futuristic Gandhiji's this comment was. Question number 5. Gandhiji did not believe in very large political or economic solution. Justify. I have spoken about this while explaining question number 2 on this slide. So the answer of question number 2 is the answer of question number 5 also. Where there is a will, there is the way. Explain in the light of chapter Indigo. Rajkumar Shukla, a poor peasant, had a strong will to bring Gandhi to Champaran. For weeks together he was with Gandhi, and at last he could bring Gandhi to Champaran. The landlords were powerful, they had the government on their side, but the strong determination and strong will of Gandhi and the peasants forced the powerful British government and the landlords to surrender 25% amount and their authoritative attitude and prestige. Their long struggle shows their strong will, and at last they got the way to get 25% refund and to get their confidence and fearlessness. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and comment.